Graham, Linda, we've just come straight off the back of a webinar that we've done there, the science behind making memorable messages. And we had so many questions and so much love for you guys as well. Thank you ever so much. Just on that, just a few people. Excellent. Thank you very much. A very stimulating and insightful conversation. Thank you, Linda and Graham. Thank you for the webinar. I work as a campaigner, and this has been so inspiring and thought-provoking. Just so much. I mean, it goes on. Literally, I've downloaded all the questions, and I've had to green out so many of them because they're just people saying how much they love you guys, so, and how valuable they found it. So thank you. Jumping then into the questions that we didn't have time to answer. Chelsea Carrington, I'm going to do this in no particular order. I'm just going to go straight from top to the bottom. So Chelsea Carrington has said, well, she asked a question about which brands were doing it well. And it was, to be honest with you, a question I caught you on the hop a bit with, wasn't it? Because, Graham, as you said, there were some companies do it well one day, but then maybe not so well the next day. And, you know, that is the challenging with messaging, isn't it? It's just being consistent. Just to pick up on that, though, Chelsea, jump onto mediafirst.co.uk/blog and just check out all the case studies there. Adam, who is our content editor here, he does 2 or 3 blogs a week, and he writes so many case studies around, and many of which are around, you know, people who deliver messages that he personally thinks resonate well, or that we think kind of ticks a number of the acronyms that Graham, Linda, and myself have spoken about today. So that's probably where I would start in terms of going and have a looking at those case studies. Melissa has asked, how important stroke effective are visuals to support a message? Spoke a bit about that. Graham, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, the study that I mentioned spoke about the way that the two have got to match, so that the text, the sound, the visuals have got to be congruent. They've got to match very, very closely. Otherwise, their brain starts not paying attention, starts trying to do 2, 3 things at once, and consequently the message gets missed. So the visuals are really, really important. And if you think about it, we are a visual animal. And we even know, for example, that people who are blind from birth have visual activity, in a sense, in their brain. And so there is visual activity going on in their brain. We don't see with our eyes. Our eyes are just receptors for light, and all our eyes do is convert that light into electrochemical signals, effectively, that they're dealt with initially in the back of your brain. But I'm sure Linda can tell us much more about exactly what goes on in the brain. But the point I'm making is that we are visual. So visuals really, really important.
Visuals are important. I mean, and totally right. But we also even decode words from the auditory cortex into visual images in our brain as well. So anything, the thing is the congruency that Graham was talking about, and relevance. So if you're going to use any visual image, it needs to be really relevant and bang on message. Do not set yourself up for dissonance. You've really got to make sure you're bang on message, that it relates to who you want it to relate to, and that you still stimulate some kind of novelty or curiosity in it as well, if you possibly can, because it's another opportunity to do that. So that my suggestion, but always be relevant. Don't try to get too clever, and then you just think, well, it doesn't make any sense, because there's no point in that.
So from a media spokesperson perspective, if I can just add to that question, you know, how important is the person who's, you know, presenting the information, and what they look like and how they dress and things like that? You know, how important is that when delivering a message?
Well, clearly, if you're trying to portray a professional image and a professional business, you don't want to, you know, be there in your jeans and T-shirt kind of thing. But it's the overall image that's really important. So what's the background? All of that, you know, we look at the whole image. So at the moment, people can see my face and a map behind me. And it kind of looks that I'm in an office and it's a bit professional, hopefully. Whereas if that was, you know, random pictures, or you'd got my fridge behind me with fridge magnets on it kind of thing, it wouldn't it would, even though you would focus on me, because you're looking at me at the moment as I answer the question, actually all of that background stuff would create that dissonance in the brain. So it's not just how you look, it's everything associated with the image. And you see so many mistakes made with people on TV forgetting to look at the background.
Yeah, and remember that people need to feel that they can relate to the person. So it needs to be relatable. Now, it could be, I mean, I know a young guy who he's actually 30, but he looks more like 18, and he speaks to teenagers. He is absolutely brilliant at speaking to teenagers because they can relate to him and his appearance and everything. Now, it's terribly wrong that we judge people by their appearance, but it's actually a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So although it's wrong, the brain automatically looks, are they friend or are they foe? Which camp are they going to be in? So they need to be likable, they need to be relatable, and they need to be therefore looking as if they are relevant to the topic and the words they're saying.
Yeah, so it comes back to, doesn't it, picking the right spokesperson for the right message for the right audience. It's not just as simple as getting the message right. Maria Porter has asked, but what happens when everyone is using novelty and it's overdone? So we were talking about the power of novelty when trying to capture people's attention. Graham?
I think I'm not quite sure how everybody, every message that's novel would trigger interest in us. So I'm not entirely sure you could overdo it. It's whether or not that novelty is relevant. So if you're doing novelty for the sake of it, just to do something unusual, then actually people will switch off. There used to be I don't know what you call it, a publication in the UK called Exchange and Mart. And what it was kind of an early eBay in print.
I love that magazine.
And people used to sell things.
I love that magazine.
You love that magazine,
yeah.
Okay. But it was, people used to advertise things, and businesses would advertise things for sale. And there would be, ridiculous headings on there to try and attract you because it was classified advertising. And there would be a heading and it would say sex. And then underneath it would go, now I've got your attention. Would you like some plumbing supplies? And so the novelty didn't, people were trying to attract people by novelty, but actually it didn't work because it wasn't relevant. Yeah, quite clickbait in print form, but it's got to be relevant novelty. So the novelty will wear off, absolutely, if it's not relevant to the audience. When it's relevant, when it's about them, then it won't wear off.
Also, remember, novelty has an element of surprise. And if you think about comedians, it is the element of surprise that makes you laugh.
Yeah.
It's that incongruency at the end of a punchline that makes you laugh. So that is what keeps our attention, because we're waiting for the next surprise. So in actual fact, I'm not suggesting that novelty in the situation that we're talking about is the same thing, but you still can secure attention by something novel that is relevant to you, but is not going to be relevant to everybody else in the competition. It's just you. So it's very unlikely that the whole world is going to be doing the same thing at the same time.
And also targeting the same people, of course. Lee has asked, could you repeat how you access the previous webinars? So it's mediafirst.co.uk/downloads. You'll find them all there. David Hare has said, love the heart attack grill story. So is the moral of the tale that they're selling food, but what the customers are really buying is changed emotion? In this case, fun.
Fun and trust, because they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
The food is rubbish. It's going to be really bad for you. So, but come on in anyway. It's going to be fun. A special treat won't hurt you. Oh, and by the way, they have weighing scales outside that looks like a platform. And if you weigh 350 pounds, you get a free meal. Yeah, so absolutely hilarious. So yeah, it's novelty, it's fun. Hopefully, it's a one-off that you're not going to make a habit of going there. But yeah, it's their honesty
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. I wonder if you do weigh over £350, whether or not you're still allowed to go on the zip line thing, or if it's like you go on that, get a free meal, but you can't go on that. Yeah. Cameron asked what the other two C's were. One was curiosity. Linda, what were the other couple that we mentioned?
The 3 C's are context, concept, and content.
Wonderful. Thank you. So not curiosity at all. That could be the fourth one.
That is part of the way of making a memorable message. But context, concept, and content.
Is Debbie Channa has said, is there psychology around colour? A red full stop after a sentence in the Tesco ad draws my eye to the brand colour, maybe.
It might. In fact, the Tesco brand colour is an interesting example of colour in branding. Okay. And there is an awful lot of stuff about the psychology of colour which is patent nonsense. You often see people say, oh, these colours mean this, with absolutely zero evidence as to what they mean. We know about colour in biology and what it means. So there are various colour signals in biology, and they have important roles. But the Tesco colours, when Tesco was not as successful as a supermarket as it is now, its brand colour was almost entirely red. And its brand colour now is almost entirely blue. And you will find in marketing textbooks, I assume, and I've certainly read it on the web, about how the colour change was, all considered change in terms of the colour. Actually, what you need to do is read why the colour was changed by Sir Terry Leahy. Sir Terry Leahy was the new chief executive. He'd previously been, I think, the marketing director of Tesco. And when he became chief executive, he was instrumental in changing the colour from predominantly red to predominantly blue. If you don't know anything about Sir Terry Leahy, go and look at his biography. Sir Terry Leahy was, at the same time, a director of Everton. He is a Liverpudlian. He has supported Everton all his life. He hates the colour red. He loves the colour blue. He changed the colour on his emotion. And after that, Tesco has become a much more... So the success of Tesco has something to do with its colour, but not a great deal. The point about red in biology is that people think red means stop. It doesn't. It means pay attention. So red in biology is a very powerful signal to pay attention to something. When certain apes, for example, are on their estrus cycle, in other words, when they are receptive to mating and can reproduce, parts of their body change colour to red, and it tells the male monkeys or apes, hang on a minute, chaps, we need to get active here, because otherwise the species doesn't survive. So red is a pay attention signal. You don't need to pay attention to a green traffic light. It doesn't matter if you don't go. It does matter if you don't stop. So red means pay attention. And so when you see that red full stop in the Tesco advert, you immediately pay attention to it because it's the red. So you see this on shopping carts, for example. People think I should got to put my shopping cart, colour it green because green means go. Actually, green means to people on shopping carts, the message it's sending is you don't need to worry about it. Whereas the red button on a shopping cart means I'd better press this button now.
Oh, and also remember that colour is culturally specific as well. Yeah. There is biology, most certainly, but in China, the auspicious colour is red. Yeah. In the West, we tend to think of it as aggressive. So it is culturally specific, and I actually don't take much notice of it, to be honest with you.
Donna Ramsey has said, sorry, Graham. Donna has said, are there variances or nuances in different cultural contexts? And she wasn't actually talking about colours at that point. She was just talking about message development, I believe, more. But yeah, maybe you could expand on that, Linda, based upon what you've just said there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what we have to be very mindful of. I'm a neuroscientist, so I come from a place of biology and chemicals. Okay, however, we are talking about human beings, which means the curveballs will keep coming. We are more than chemicals, and we are more than neurons. We are products, our environmental and social upbringing as well, and we live in a multicultural society. So we have to be very mindful of how we're coming across, and indeed not taking things as gospel, because we are talking about human beings. And in psychology, you think you've got absolutely the handle on someone, and then blow me down, along comes a curveball, and you go bang. You think that's not the rules. That's not what should happen. That's the nature of being a human being. The curveballs will keep coming. So there is never a one size that fits all, although science does give us a big leg up on the subject of human behavior.
The psychology of something called social construction, of how we as an individual are constructed by the society around us, is really important. So different cultures are socially constructed. So this means their brain operates in a different way because they've been constructed by the society in which they exist. And so, for example, when we spoke about relevance and the need to be relevant and showing likability, for example, in our culture here in the UK, that is predominantly about us as an individual. So you need to demonstrate that, as I said in that quote, it's about you, you, you. In America, they're predominantly a self-centered cultural social construct. Whereas in parts of Asia, the you would need to be translated into the group that you represent, because they are constructed, socially constructed, into thinking about not of themselves as an individual, but about, for example, their local community. So the messaging would need not to be about an individual, but about the community. And then they would see it as relevant to them. So the relevance certainly has a cultural component to it, because our brains and our psychology work differently depending on where we were born and brought up.
To be honest with you guys, I think there were about 3 or 4 other questions there that we hadn't answered, but I propose what we do is we'll answer those in the blog that goes out alongside this recorded, Q&A section. And I think we got the majority of the ones where they were certainly voted up high, so I'm not too concerned. Apologies if your question was down the bottom there and we didn't answer it, but we will answer it in written form for you. So Graham, Linda, thank you ever so much again for everything you've done this morning. I know the feedback that we had from everybody, has just been so good, and there were so many people on, and lots of interactivity as well amongst the audience, which was great to see. People answering other people's questions around what different acronyms meant and things that they missed from you guys, that they were like, oh, what was that? So it was just a really kind of good session for everybody. So thank you ever so much again, Graham and Linda.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for asking us to speak.
Yeah, thank you.